What's up, guys? You are watching Fight Feed. Please join me as we take a moment of silence for the debut of Aaron Pico in the UFC. All right, guys, this video is it's going to be a little bit of a different one here. I've got a lot to share with you guys, but right off the bat, what I want to dive into is the face of Dana White and the dichotomy of Dana White next to Hunter Campbell and their reactions to Aaron Pico being chalked around the body here. I'm not going to zoom in because it would be too hard for you guys to see it. But Dana has that typical Dana White shit-eating grin on his face. It's just like, we're about to make so much money from this. Hunter Campbell is just concerned for Aaron Pico's lifeless body that lay before him. Shock, concern. Dana White is just grinning ear to ear with that shit-eating grin. And you love to see it, right? Guys, I wanted to bring up this video or just talk about Aaron Pico's debut in the UFC. Unfortunately, the UFC continues to do this. I don't know if it's a way of like trying to big brother the other organizations like PFL and Bellator by having their previous talent basically shown up or like just decimated on their arrival to the UFC as a way of like, hey, yeah, we know you guys are making noise, but you guys ain't on the shit that we're on type of thing. I don't know if that is the case. I would argue it's not, because the UFC seems to be putting all of these fighters from Bellator, PFL into these very solid positions where, you know, they win in their debut. They're kind of right there for a potential title shot. If we look at Michael Chandler, for example, he is the one case where he had that red carpet rollout, was given, you know, the backup position against Khabib and Gaethje off the rip in the UFC, got Dan Hooker, and then was ushered into a title shot against Oliveira. And so you would argue that, no, the UFC is probably doing this to set these fighters up rather than to snub or throw a jab at their previous organizations, right? So unfortunately for Aaron Pico, he goes out there, has a great, couple minute showing, did hurt Lerone Murphy, like I said in previous videos, more so than other fighters have in recent fights that Lerone's had. So that was great, but unfortunately for him, he gets chalked out, and he got starched pretty badly in his debut at the UFC. Where this video is now going to take a turn, guys, I've done some research. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's an actor who has been making waves in recent years, especially this year, for the amount of attention and films he's been a part of. That actor is Mr. Pedro Pascal. He has been in all kinds of movies, just really blown up in recent years, especially this year. And I don't know how the UFC got away with this, guys, but I'm going to be the first to break this news. Aaron Pico is actually not a real person. It was just Pedro Pascal in a different font. He cut some weight, got in great shape, and decided, you know what, instead of doing all these movie roles, I'm going to see how far I can take this acting thing. I'm going to try to be a UFC fighter. And so they've created Aaron Pico, which is now Pedro Pascal's alter ego. Outside the cage, he's Pedro Pascal, Mr. Savant, movie maker, movie actor. But inside the cage, he becomes Aaron Pico, the killer, the destroyer. And that is what the UFC somehow was able to get done before our eyes. They put this guy in there, thinking he could act his way into a title shot. And he ended up in one of the worst spots you can be, which is back to the canvas, unconscious. Now, guys, that is just a joke, but I've been looking at Aaron Pico for the last, I don't know how many months, ever since he became, a UFC fighter. And I just cannot unsee the uncanny resemblance Pico and Pascal have. They have this fucking, their last name starts with a P too. I mean, how many people have that? But guys, as I was digging into this and just looking at things, I came across something that is so jarring, and I can't even believe it actually happened. But before I show this, I do want to say what I'm about to show you guys is from the series Game of Thrones. So if you are currently watching Game of Thrones, not sure why you would be unless you're just rewatching, but now that everyone has seen it, this will have a bit of a spoiler for you. So just keep that in mind if you are curious about that. But what I'm about to show you guys is the juxtaposition of Mr. Pico and Mr. Pascal in their final resting places. So here you guys have it. So taking a look at Mr. Pico on the left here, just look at Pico, how he is laid out. It is uncanny how similar his fate in his UFC debut. Of course, not as brutal as what happened in the Game of Thrones in this scene. If you guys have seen it, it is one of the most brutal fight scenes I've ever experienced or viewed in a series. But Pedro Pascal's character, he comes out, he goes to fight the Mountain, and everyone is thinking the Mountain's going to just wipe the floor with this dude. But Pedro Pascal's quick, agile, he's got all these spinning tricks he's doing. He actually fucks the Mountain up pretty badly, guys. But he gets too cocky, okay? He gets too cocky. He's too overzealous with his offense. Gets caught. And when you get caught by the Mountain, it's an avalanche, okay? And, the Mountain punches his teeth straight out of his mouth, and then he sticks his thumbs in his eyes and explodes his top. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, the brains come out the top. That's the splatter you're seeing around. And I so kindly just edited Mr. Pascal's nice face over that gory mess. But I could not help but realize when I took a look at this, the way that Pascal's character is laid out after dying looks exactly like Pico when he was laid out after Lerone Murphy. And the fact that, like, guys, this is like such a weird image in and of itself. Like, why is Pico, like, why did we get a picture of Pico just like sprawled out? Like, we don't see anybody else. It's just him. It looks like he's napping in the octagon. And then you've got Dana White in the background. But I could not believe this shit when I actually looked it up, because I obviously remember Pascal in Game of Thrones, one of his greater roles. And honestly, looking back, it's what I think catapulted him on the scene in like the last decade or so of, roles that he's had. Like, I think it kind of revitalized or pushed his career further. But it is absolutely shocking to me how much him and Pico look alike. But then when you consider this scene and what occurred in that Game of Thrones scene and what occurred to Pico, like, Pico got overzealous, right? He hurt his opponent off the rip, and then he gets overzealous and gets caught, knocked out. Now, obviously, like I said, what happened in real life, fortunately, nowhere near as brutal as what happened in Game of Thrones, because, obviously that is barbaric. But it is just crazy to think that you could tie these two situations, completely unrelated situations, together with similar looking people, like very similar looking. I mean, Pico is likely to look like Pascal as he ages, just based off of the fact that they already look pretty similar, in my opinion. But what I put here is just like UFC needs to stop. And the reason I say they need to stop, guys, is I am sick of seeing these matchups for a debuting fighter from another organization, unless they have, the proof is in the pudding, unless they have the data or the record to suggest that they're prepared for elite level opposition in the UFC, they need to fight someone else in the UFC who's not levels ahead skill wise. And although Pico, hurt Lerone Murphy, which we know Pico has great boxing. He clearly is missing an element there where he didn't realize the danger he was in against an elite level opposition like Lerone Murphy. It's the same thing, guys, as Patchy Mix going out there and getting his guts beat up by Mario Bautista, no Diddy. He literally got his stomach stamped by the straight punches of Mario Bautista and then got his lip busted up, his face busted up by Mario Bautista because they went out there and they think that because they had success in other organizations that will just simply translate 1-to-1 in the UFC. And guys, the records and all the things we've seen have proven otherwise. As of this year, 2025 alone, if I'm just going to take a look at fighters from other organizations who have come over and debuted in the UFC in 2025 alone, 2024, you would throw MVP in there. He's the only one to get numerous wins in the UFC from a different organization and still not have a title shot, believe it or not, which is actually nuts when you think about it, because Chandler beats Hooker, he gets a title shot next. MVP beats Kevin Holland, no title shot. Still no title shot, but he's 3 or 4-1 in the UFC. And now we've got Patchy Mix, debuts, gets smoked by Mario Bautista. Marcus Buchecha from One Championship. I picked Patchy Mix and I picked Marcus Buchecha, both to win in their debut fights in the UFC. Both got smoked. So 0-2 in 2025 so far. Now let's throw Aaron Pico into the mix. 0-3. Like, it's not any type of like shocking thing at this point. I think the UFC needs to learn from their lesson here. You cannot just throw these guys to the wolves. Like, Aaron Pico didn't even, as I said in my other videos, Aaron Pico didn't even have a record that suggested he was prepared for someone at the caliber of Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy, although he's had some boring fights, the guy is undefeated in his career, undefeated in the UFC, and has wins over so many top-level talented featherweights in the UFC featherweight division. So I have no clue what they're thinking, just throwing this guy to the wolves and letting him get eaten alive. Like, it is crazy to me, but I'm hopeful, guys, that the UFC has learned their lesson. They stopped hiring actors like, Pedro Pascal to play as a UFC. I'm just kidding. I just think that it's unfortunate because, Aaron Pico, should he have got the job done, it would have been monumental for him. And it sucks that things happen the way they did for him, but I'm hopeful the UFC takes a step back because Pico is still very young, 29 years old. He's got so much left in his career still, where I think if the UFC takes a step back, they could, give him a couple fights that are with lower level opposition in the UFC, give him a chance to get his bearings, get his feet wet, and then come back into these ranked opposition fights. But I think right now, after seeing what happened last weekend, they really need to take a step back and they got to stop giving these, debuting fighters these massive opportunity fights. Like Kaya Sakura is another one, but that was from 2024. Gets a title shot off the rip and gets smoked by Alexandre Pantoja, and then he got smoked by Tim Elliott. Like, we got to do something different here, guys. And it is something that the UFC has got to do, because it's just right now it is stinking up the potential of any other, PFL Bellator fighter that is bound to come over to the UFC. And it's also just not fair to the current guys and gals, if you will, because I don't know how many, female opposition we've had from these other organizations, but you have like great fighters like Dakota Ditcheva, who, at least if Dakota Ditcheva came over to the UFC, she actually did beat Talia Santos? Yeah, Talia Santos. She smoked Talia Santos, who fought Shevchenko for the belt previously in the UFC, and not that long ago. So at the very least, you could look at that example and be like, okay, well, you actually have beaten one of our previous fighters who did fight for the belt. So you can really do more with that learning, but really outside of that scenario, we're not seeing any of these situations where these fighters have elite level wins over, high level UFC fighters. Like, I just think the UFC needs to shift the way they do this, because it's not only looking bad on these other organizations, but then it also looks horrible for the current ranked opposition in each of these divisions, because it's like they're sitting there thinking, why am I not getting this opportunity? Why are you giving this opportunity to someone who's just getting here, has not proven themselves yet? It's really shocking, but at the same time, it has set up a very clear contender to go up against Volk. So I would say we have to appreciate it for that. But the thing is, if Pico would have got this job done, I don't know if there would be a lot of fans who would be supportive of him even getting that crack at the title, given the fact that it's one fight and now you're getting ushered into a title shot. It just doesn't seem fair when you've got guys like Mobzar on numerous fight winning streak, like 5+ fight winning streak. Gene Silva too, like these guys who have actually done work and made money for the UFC and brought in different things to the UFC. It just doesn't make any sense that you would give that opportunity to a brand new fighter. But the UFC, I think they just need to stop. They've got to learn, and hopeful that we see a shift here. All jokes aside, I was just really floored when I saw this image, and I had to present it to you guys. So make sure you give this video a like if you enjoyed. Please comment below what your thoughts are on the situation, how you feel about the UFC giving these ample opportunities to brand new fighters. Would love to hear from you guys. And if you aren't, please subscribe to the Fight Feed so you can stay on top of all my new content that I'll be posting. Thank you guys so much again, and you will see me in the next one.